Hello, remote eighth graders. I am back to read the famous balcony scene, Act 2, Scene 2. Before we start, I want to do a little bit of a review as we always do. So we've got the feud going on. Juliet is going to be hopefully set up. They're trying to set up her to marry Paris. She's not really down. She's going to the party to meet him, but ends up meeting Romeo instead. They fall in love pretty quickly. They kiss. They find out who each other are, and they realize they can't be together. Tybalt also spots Romeo at the party, says he's going to fight Romeo later. In Act Two so far, the prologue just let us know all about Romeo and Juliet falling in love, that they can't be together, and that they're deeply in love. He's got over Rosaline and just totally in love with Juliet at this point. But they now know they can't be together. In scene one, it's a very quick scene. Romeo runs away from his friends on the way home from the Capulet party. He jumps over the Capulet orchard wall to go see Juliet. So now we are on Act Two, Scene Two. This is the most famous scene in Romeo and Juliet. You've probably seen it or heard it before. It's in some way. This is Juliet on her balcony. You can see her in back there. She is outside at night. This says it's early morning. I would say it was probably even earlier than this. Somewhere, early morning. Romeo and Juliet are in the scene, and the nurse is off stage. She'll come back later. So Romeo has now run away from his friends, and he is going to see Juliet at the Capulet Orchard. And she is up on her balcony. The important thing to know is that he is like down here in the bushes somewhere, and she does not know he's there. He can see her, but she cannot see him. So this is what we call dramatic irony. So in dramatic irony, one character does not know something that the other characters or the audience members do know. So let's get started. We're gonna begin. So Romeo is wandering around the Capulet orchard. He's like basically in the bushes in the orchard. She's up on her balcony, and he's just kind of creeping in the bushes right now, which is pretty weird. Romeo says, "He who jests at scars never felt a wound." So he's listening to Benvolio and Mercutio make fun of him from afar, call after him, and he says, "He who jokes at scars never felt a wound." They don't know how he feels and how, in love he is. So that's what he's talking about there. Juliet appears in her bedroom window. She's not out on the balcony yet, but she will be. Romeo can see and hear her, but she does not know he is there. So kind of creepy. He says, "But soft, what light through yonder window breaks?" There's a light on coming through that window. It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou her maid art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious, her vestal livery is but sick and greed, but none but fools do wear it. So basically, you look over here, he's talking about how beautiful she is, how, she is like the sun, and, the sun kills the moon is just envious of how beautiful she is. He's talking a lot about virginity here, and how basically he wants her to get rid of it. So, kind of complimenting her beauty and also talking a little bit dirty about her and what he's got on his mind currently. So remember, he is in the Capulet Orchard. She does not see him, but he is looking up at her, watching her, and saying how beautiful she is. Romeo continues. So he's still talking to himself and thinking about how beautiful she is. And she's up on her balcony, just waiting and, thinking about him as well. Doesn't know that he is there. Romeo continued. "It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her eye converses. I will answer it. I am too bold. 'Tis not to me she speaks. Two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. What if her eyes were there, they in her head, the brightness of her cheek would shame those stars. Her eyes light in the sky would shine so bright that birds would sing and think it were not night. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. So this is kind of weird. So she's up on her balcony and she is kind of talking to herself. She's talking to herself about Romeo. Romeo can't hear her what she's actually saying, but he's also talking about her and how beautiful she is. He's actually saying, I wish, over down here, I wish I were a glove upon her hand so that I might touch her cheek. She has her hand resting on her cheek, and he wishes he were a glove upon her hand so that he could touch her cheek. It's very strange. But basically, just kind of creeping around outside, watching her up above, and saying how beautiful she is and how much he wants to be with her. Here's Juliet, I think. Here we go. "Ay me," she says, "oh my." Romeo to himself says, "She speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel, for thou art o'er my head and glorious in the night is a winged messenger of heaven." So he compares her to a an angel, and says she's a winged messenger of heaven. So he's listening into her, um, and watching her and thinking about what she's saying. Juliet talking to herself, still unaware that Romeo is hidden in the trees below her balcony. So she starts talking aloud about him, which, if you're talking loudly about your crush and then they hear you, pretty embarrassing. So she says, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet." So this is probably the most famous part of this play. You've probably heard this part right here. She is talking to herself, saying, "I love you. Why do you have to be a Montague? Reject your family and last name and just be in love with me, and I'll also no longer be a Capulet." So he's listening in on her talking about him. She's just talking to herself about her crush, and he is hearing all of it. To himself, he says, "Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?" So he says, "Should I talk to her, or should I keep listening in and being a creeper?" Juliet, still to herself, "'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thou self, though not a Montague. What is Montague? It is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, or any other part belonging to a man. Oh, be some other names." Continuing to talk about him and special parts of him, even making her own little sexual joke there, and it tells him, "Please be some other name." Come on. There we go. Juliet's continuing to talk to herself. She says, "What's in a name? The which, if we call a rose by any other name, would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owns without that title. Romeo doth thy name, and for that name, which is no part of thee, take all myself." So she's continuing to go on, calling him basically a rose, saying that he's perfect. He would even if he changed his name, he would be perfect. She wants him to get rid of his name, and like be her lover, basically. Romeo says to Juliet, this time he's talking to her. So this is the first moment where she actually notices him because he speaks to her. So loudly to Juliet, he says, "I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I'll never be Romeo." So he tells her, "I take thee at thy word. You can call me your love. I will get rid of my name and I will never again be Romeo." She is startled because she doesn't realize that he's in the woods at her house, like watching her talk about him out loud. So she's frightened. She says, "What man art thou who stumblest upon my talking, thus hidden in night? Who are you? Why are you here?" And she can't really see him because it's too dark. So she's startled by him because I mean he is creeping down in her backyard, and she didn't know that he was there this whole time yet. Let's keep going. Romeo says, "By a name I know not how to tell thee who I am." She doesn't. she can't date him, so he doesn't wanna say who it is. "My name, dear Satan, is hateful to myself because it is an enemy to thee. Were it written, I would tear the word." So he says, "I'm an enemy to you, I don't wanna tell you my name. If I had it written down, I would tear it up." Juliet says, "My ears have not yet drunk 100 words of that tongue's utterance, yet I know the sound. Art thou not Romeo and a Montague?" She says, "Is it Romeo, and aren't you a Montague?" "Neither, fair maid, if either thee dislike." He says, "Neither, if you dislike Romeo or Montague." Juliet goes on, "Tell me, how camest thou hither, and wherefore? How'd you get here, and where did you come from? The orchard walls are high and hard to climb, and it would mean death for thee, considering who thou art, if any of my kinsmen find thee here." So she says, "How did you get here? The orchard walls are high and hard to climb, and if somebody finds you, if one of my relatives or kinsmen finds you, it would mean death. You're a Montague. You're not supposed to be here." So she's like, "How in the world did you get here?" His answer's pretty corny. He says, "With love's light wings did I soar o'er these walls. Stony limits cannot hold love out. Love can do anything it dares attempt. Therefore, thy kinsmen are no stop to me." He says, "I came over these walls with love's light wings." Ugh. He says that stony walls cannot keep him out and that her relatives are not going to stop him. Like, he'll basically die to come see her. Romeo being crazy and dramatic once again. Juliet continues, "If they do see thee, they will murder thee. If my relatives see you, they will murder me," she said. "They will murder you," she says. He says, "Alack, there lies more peril or danger in thine eye than in 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet, and I am invincible against their loathing." He says, "If you don't want me, that will be worse than 20 of their swords. So look at me sweetly, and I am invincible against their hate and their fighting." So another very corny thing for him to say. Like, basically, their swords don't mean that anything. As long as I have you, I will survive. Juliet continues, "I would give the world for them to not see thee here." So she's worried that her relatives are going to wake up. They're going to see that they're talking, that he's visiting, and he is not supposed to be there. Romeo, "I have night's cloak to hide me from their eyes, and if thou dost not love me, let them find me here. My life were better ended by their hate than to live without thy love." So he says, "I have the night to hide me. If you don't love me, then let them find me here. They should kill me if you don't love me." Continuing to be very dramatic. "How foundest thou out this place? How did you find me here?" she says. Romeo says, "Love did lead me here. Wert thou as far away as the farthest sea, I would adventure to find thee." So love brought him there. He's so corny. Ugh. Juliet continues, "Thou hast heard me speak some things tonight, which would cause a blush to be paint my cheek under the mask of night." She says, "You have overheard me saying some things that I wish you didn't hear." She continues, "I would fain deny what I have spoke for the sake of seeming well-mannered, but farewell appearances." She says, I would deny what you heard me speak, um, to seem, more well-mannered, but who cares what people think?" She continues, "Dost thou love me? Do you love me? I know thou wilt say aye or yes, and I will take thy word. Yet if thou swearest, thou may prove false. At lovers' lies, they say Jove laughs." So she asks him, "Do you love me?" And I hope you do. I hope you swear that you will love me. "O gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully. If you love me, say it faithfully. Say it true, say it loud. If thou thinkest I am too quickly won, I'll frown and say thee nay, so thou wilt woo. In truth, fair Montague, I am too fond, and therefore thou mayest think me loose. But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those that have tricks to seem coy." So she's like, "I feel like I'm moving too fast. Maybe you don't love me, and maybe you think this is too quick. But let me know if you love me or not." She's kind of just very forward and asks him straight up, "Do you love me?" She continues, I should have been more distant, I must confess, but thou overheardest my true love's passion ere I was aware of your presence. Therefore pardon me, and do not attribute this fast fall to light love. 'Twas only the dark of night which allowed you to discover the quickness. So she's embarrassed. She's like, you overheard me when I was not aware that you were there. And now I feel silly for telling you that I love you already. But she's like, please just like let me know how you feel. Romeo starts to talk. Lady, by yonder blessed moon, I vow. So he says, I swear by the moon that I love you. She said, that's what he starts to say. She interrupts him and says, oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon that changes monthly in her orbit, lest thy love prove likewise variable. She says, don't swear by the moon changes. He says, what shall I swear by then? Do not swear at all, for if thou wilt swear by thy gracious self, the God of my idolatry, and I'll believe them. She says, just pronounce it. Just tell me if you love me or not. If my heart's dear love, he says. Come on. Juliet continues, well, do not swear. Although I joy in thee, I have no joy in this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning, which doth cease to be ere one can say it lightens. So she says, actually, don't tell me if you love me or not. She says, although I have joy in you, I have no joy of this contract tonight. It's too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning. She says, we're moving too quickly. We need to slow down here. Sweet good night. She tries to say good night to him. This bud of love may prove a beauteous flower when next we meet. She says, I will see you next time and we will have even better feelings, more improved feelings for each other, increased feelings. Good night, good night. May sweet peace and rest come to thy heart as they are in mine. So she tries to say good night to him, tries to leave. He says, oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? He says, are you going to leave me so unsatisfied tonight? She says, what satisfaction canst thou have tonight? What do you want tonight? He says, the exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine. So he actually wants her to say, I that she'll marry him. So the exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine. He basically says, I want you to say that you will marry me. So, moving very quickly, if you forgot, this is still the night of the party. This is the night they met. And he's saying, let's get married, basically. Juliet says, I gave thee mine before thou didst request it. She says, yes. They just met tonight. He's 18, she's 13. Just met, and now they have decided to get married very soon. I gave thee mine before thou didst request it, and yet I could take it back to give it to thee again. Yet I wish for the thing I have. My love is as boundless as the sea. The more I give to thee, the more I have. She agrees to marry him. Keep in mind, they just met. Crazy stuff here. Come on. Suddenly, the nurse calls from within. Juliet says, I hear some noise within. Dear love, adieu. Like I'll see you later. Anon, good nurse. Just a minute, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Stay but a little. I will come again. She says, stay out here. I'll come back. I just need to go see what the nurse wants. Juliet leaves and goes into her room. Romeo talks to himself. He says, oh, blessed, blessed night, this being night, I am afraid all this is but a dream, too sweet to be real. He says, I hope this is real. I love her. I'm going to marry her. This all seems like it's just a dream. It doesn't seem real. She comes back out. 3 words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If intentions be honorable, thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow through a messenger that I'll send to thee about where and what time thou wilt perform the rite. She says 3 words, basically, I love you, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. She tries to say good night to him. She says, if your intentions are honorable, if you really want to marry me and your purpose is marriage, send word for me tomorrow through a messenger. So send me a message tomorrow and we will plan where and what time we will get married. So they're going to get married tomorrow. They met today. They have known each other for a couple of hours and they have decided to get married. So, not a great idea. So they have already, pledged their love to each other and already made plans to get married, and they're gonna get married tomorrow. She continues. And all my fortunes at thy foot I'll lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world. She says, I'll follow you throughout the world. I'll be your wife. The nurse yells from within again, Madam, Juliet, I come anon. But if thou meanest not well, I do beseech thee. She says, I'm coming in a second. She says that to the nurse. The nurse from within again, Madam, Juliet says, By and by I come. If thou meanest not well, cease thy wooing, and leave me to my grief. Tomorrow will I send my messenger. So she says, if you're not meaning well, you don't want to actually marry me, then stop your wooing, stop pursuing me, and leave me to my grief. And she says, Tomorrow I will send a messenger. Romeo says, My soul waits for it. Juliet, 1,000 times good night. Exit Juliet to her room. Romeo says, I am 1,000 times the worse leaving thy light. Love goes toward love as schoolboys from their books, but love from love toward school with heavy looks. So he's talking about here how he's like a schoolboy excited for the end of school. He's so excited to marry Juliet. He doesn't even like want to go to bed, basically. So basically, what's happening right now is Romeo's still outside Juliet's balcony, and Juliet keeps coming in and out of the house. So this is kind of like when a young couple, is on the phone, and one is like, "No, you hang up. No, you hang up," and kind of going back and forth and like not letting each other leave. This is kind of what's happening, but with Juliet going in and out of the balcony on her room. Juliet hissed. Romeo hissed. She's whispering to him. Romeo says, You called me back, my love? Juliet says, What o'clock tomorrow shall I send my message to thee? What time should I send my messenger to you? Romeo, by the hour of 9 a.m., he says. I will not fail. It seems like 20 years till then. I have forgotten why I did thee call thee back. She says, I will do that. I will send my messenger to you tomorrow at 9. It feels like 20 years till then. Keep in mind this is like 4 hours from now. If this is 5 o'clock in the morning, this is like 4 hours away. They're being very dramatic and like really over the top. She also says, I've forgotten why I've called you back. Romeo says, Let me stand here till thou remember it. Juliet, I shall forget if thou standest there, remembering only how I love thy company. They're just going on and on, complimenting each other, telling each other how much they love each other, and blah, blah, blah. Romeo says, And I'll still stay to have thee still forgetting any other home, but this, they're just like ogling over each other. Juliet, 'tis almost morning, thou must be gone. Good night, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow. They're finally going to leave each other here. Exit Juliet. Romeo ends by saying, Sweet dwell upon thine eye, peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep in peace, so sweet to rest. Hence will I go to Friar Lawrence's cell to ask his help, and this story to him tell. So he is headed out to Friar Lawrence. This is a new character. He's a priest. He's also kind of like a mad scientist. He's a cool character. So he is the person, he's going to ask Friar Lawrence to marry him and Juliet. So secretly, they're not going to tell their parents. So that was Act Two, Scene Two. It was kind of long. Please go to your notes, your Romeo and Juliet notes document, or if you're doing this remotely, just for like a week or something, go to your journal and take these notes down. So in Scene Two, the balcony scene. This is the famous balcony scene. Romeo and Juliet meet up again and exchange vows of marriage. Romeo goes to ask Friar Lawrence to marry him and Juliet tomorrow. Um, let's just add they plan on getting married tomorrow after knowing each other for a few hours, really. Um, cool. So Romeo and Juliet meet up again. They exchange vows of marriage. They plan on getting married tomorrow after knowing each other for a few hours. And at the end, Romeo goes to ask Friar Lawrence to marry him and Juliet tomorrow. So this is all happening very fast. One thing that you should know before we move on any further is that this play takes place over like a long weekend. It's like 3 days. So a lot happens in these 3 days. So they've already met, they've gone to a party, there's already been a fight, and they're already now getting married. So just keep that in mind that this stuff happens fast. All right. Thanks for listening. Great job. Do your notes and let me know if I can help with anything. Great work. Have a good one. Bye.